heard here. But first off, let me thank a few people who made time out of what I know have their busy schedules as well as most of the rest of you carve time out. But to thank them for coming because they're the ones who make these programs run. I have some elected officials in the front row. If you don't mind, please stand up so we can all see you. There they are. These are the folks who have elected to take care of big government, their time, and their day to come busy with us. I appreciate that. And Bonnie Penn, where's Bonnie? There, let's stand up. Bonnie, thank you for coming special. Now, it's interesting you look at health, which I have spent a good part of my life doing, recognizing that when you go to medical school, you go there with an inbred passion about studying this entity, which is so sacred, so special, so unique, you couldn't help but want to study it more. And you go into practice, and you begin to realize that not everybody appreciates it the way you did. And sometimes they don't have that same understanding, that visceral awareness of why the body is so important. So what I wanted to do today is talk to you a little bit about what it feels like to be on the inside of medicine, looking at what the body does. And talk to you about some of the things that, if I could just point out a few, might be helpful to you for the rest of your lives. Now, if you've got a pen, a piece of paper, it might come in handy. I'm going to throw some numbers out there. There's no test afterwards, but the course of life may come in handy. I put some slides over there on the far right side of the panel. So this is what I think is going on in America. Everyone is pushing as hard as they can, and the door to health is not opening. And I think part of the reason for this is that we don't really appreciate, deep down, what are the best steps, the most opportune chances for us to take to improve our well-being. So I've had the opportunity over the last decade to work closely with Ms. Oprah Winfrey, and she's shared a lot of things with me about how I can talk more effectively to people about things they don't want to hear about, in particular their health. And I'm going to give it to you up front, straight up. First off, anybody out there who's in a leadership position, including our elected officials, but I've got some walnut growers here as well, who I'm very appreciative of sponsoring these programs. Some of the students who are coming from outside. You guys are leaders now because you're in the Army. You're the one to take this message out and spread the word. People do not change what they do in life based on what they know. They change based on what they feel. I want to emphasize that because too often doctors just throw numbers out at you. If you got a cigarette smoker, if you tell them that smoking is bad for him, he's going to die from it, do you think that changes their mind? They know that already. You just make them feel less self-esteem when they know that. They feel down on themselves, so they smoke to relax. And so that's often what we end up doing as physicians. So I've tried to change that. I also appreciate the message got to be upbeat, so I'm going to try to share some of those thoughts with you today. And it's going to be transformational. To be transformational, it's got to be real. It can't be dumbed down. It's got to be what's really happening. So we started this program, the Health Corps, and as Mayor mentioned, it's analogous to the Peace Corps. Take these energetic kids who are coming out of college, who aren't sure exactly what they're going to do, but they're going to do great things, and you train them how to teach, especially how to teach about health, and you put them in the schools around the country. We are now in more than 40 schools, about 20,000 kids across the U.S. are being influenced by Health Corps teachers and volunteers, and we teach kids about the wonders of their bodies. And it's not just about what they eat and how to exercise. It's even more about the mental resilience that it takes to make it happen. Because if you cannot control what's happening inside your body, you're not going to be able to control what's happening outside either. So we've taken these programs and we've gone into school systems, many of them challenging ones, and gotten kids to understand how to do it well by making it easy to do the right thing. We run seminars, we run curriculums, health fairs, fitness events. We become activists. So these kids go out, especially in the places that are food deserts, and you go out and get people to realize, and I'm going to make this clear to all of you, because the first thing we would emphasize, that each of us votes with our pocketbooks 3 times a day. We buy our food. If you buy healthy food, people will make you healthy food. If you buy junk, they're going to make you junk. We have the opportunity to change if we come together to make it happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what those steps should be. Let's start off with the lungs, which I mentioned cigarette smoking. That's the picture of a healthy lung. That's Dennis taking a jump shot from outside. As a walnut grower, he doesn't get to do that as much as Kevin used to, but that's what his lungs will hopefully look like if he's outside living the good life. Right? Now, if someone's a smoker, as I mentioned earlier, I can throw numbers at them. Or, when I have friends who smoke, I take them to the operating room and I show them a lung from a smoker. Now, forget about the tar deposition, which is pretty stunning, obviously. But look at that top area of the lung. That's what emphysema looks like, that moth-eaten, chewed-out appearance. When you see that, it enlightens you. All of a sudden, there's a different visceral appreciation of what the heck we're talking about. specialty, atherosclerosis. That's what that big tube in the middle is. On either side is the kidney. The kidney on the right is normal. See the one on the left is all shriveled up and gone? It's dead. That artery's blocked off. Why did it block off? Well, let's bring it alive. Here's a vessel going to the major part of your body. Let's say it's in your heart. That little yellowish plaque starts when you're a teenager. But that plaque begins to grow. You're 35, you're 50, you're 55. All of a sudden, sometimes, oh my goodness, it ruptured. The rupture of the plaque now is starting to create an open sore inside the blood vessel. How do you heal that? With a scab. The scab rapidly accumulates, and if it accumulates, it becomes a bigger and bigger clot that all of a sudden, kaboom, closes off. And you just saw the #1 cause of death in America. That's what a heart attack looks like. That's what a stroke is. That's what happened to that kidney when the blood vessel closed off. Now, that might scare you, but actually that should be empowering. Because what I'm really trying to get at is the fact that the plaque itself isn't the problem, it's the clot that's the problem. It's the irritation of the blood vessel that's the problem. And that's something you control from habits you develop when you're a teenager. And our communities reinforce through what we allow and tolerate and endorse in our country schools and in our living cells. So write this down. There are 5 items, 5 life adjustments that drive 70% of how well you age and how long you're going to live. And kids don't care about longevity, but they care about sexiness and hip and looking good and studying hard. These same rules apply there. If you adopt them young, you'll keep them through your life. Blood pressure. Ideal 115/75. Not the optimal number, which is 130/85, but the ideal number. Because why? The optimal person in America does much better than the average person because the average American dies of heart disease. No cigarettes or toxins, got that out. Number 3 is exercising 30 minutes a day. That's simple, old school, but it works. If you look at the places in the world where people live the longest, they're always getting about a half an hour of arduous daily physical activity. They climb the top of the mountain, they get the bucket of water, they carry it back down again. Make it part of your life. Take the elevators rarely. Make sure that you're walking a little further to get to the mall. It's a matter of making it part of your day-to-day life. Healthy diets that you love, step number 4. If you don't love it, you won't do it. I'll come back to that. And finally, stress control. And stress control is much more about how you cope with the issues in your life than whether you have issues in your life. Humans are designed to have stress, but we don't always cope with it ideally. How do I drive this point home? And there may be a couple options on how to do it, but I'm going to talk about one that's important for Sacramento, because the mayor mentioned it, and it is true. You are number 3 in the state, which you don't want to be, unless it's a good thing. But it's 3 out of 58, is that right, Kevin? Yeah, 3 out of 58 counties. So it doesn't stand well, and you're mortgaging your future on the back of the healthcare bill. You're going to have to pay to take care of that obesity problem in Sacramento. So let's talk a little bit about obesity. Obviously, Michelangelo did not make sculpture of that nature, would not have done well, but today that's what it would have to look like to be reflective of what we look like. And here's the problem. That red line is what the mental obesity rate is in this country. I'm going to come back to that. But the blues are what we think we're going to pay in healthcare. Now listen, I'm going to be real clear on this. We're not going to fix healthcare by making legislation in Washington. I don't care what party you are, I don't care what you are in favor of. It just can't happen there because they don't have that